Over to you, Chair.
Okay, declarations of interest, I take it, have been declared, and we've received apologies for today's meeting from Camilla Mankabadi and Chris Lomas, officers, and also from Liz Parsons. So are there any other late interest declared to be declared? Any items of interest to be declared? No. Okay. So can we then, I assume, just to raise your disagreements if there are any, otherwise I'll accept them as agreed, the minutes of the last meeting. Any items to be discussed? No. Okay. So we'll accept them as agreed, Mike, those minutes. So we move on to item number 3, Mayoral Reports. There are none to be considered today. So we move swiftly on to item number 4, which is Mayoral Recommendations. I think we have 3 public recommendations to consider today. The first one is item A, which is the domestic abuse services, and it's the new statutory duties to seek our approval to commission associated services with relation to our statutory duties that we have for domestic abuse services. The recommendation basically just sets out to seek our approval to commission a range of additional services in order to have a supply of individuals and support to families who are the victims of domestic abuse. And as I said, that's in relation to our statutory duties. Paul, do you want to make any comments on this?
Only 2 points, if I may, Mayor. First is to say that making sure that we provide support services for people fleeing domestic abuse is obviously a key part of what we're about on the council, and there has been no more important time to make sure we have those services in place. We've slightly lengthened the contract terms to make them more attractive to service providers and to prevent the churn of staff and as a result of shorter term contracts. So we hope that this will achieve a series of stable providers who can meet the challenges that are coming down the track.
Okay, so as I said, if nobody is raising the hand or wishing to make any other comments, can we agree the recommendation, or we will accept that the recommendation as set out in the report is agreed if nobody's raising any issues? Okay, so if we then move on to the next item on the agenda, and that is item B, and it's the introduction of Article 4, which is for us to seek to have a direction to remove permitted development rights for houses of multiple occupation. The recommendation in the report seeks our approval to establish what we call an Article 4 direction for a defined area of the city, which will remove permitted development rights for HMOs. We need to undertake a consultation process, and this will be undertaken. Then a report will come forward detailing any representations that we receive as a result of that consultation. Lynnie, any comments from you?
Yes, Joe. I think just to say we welcome this because the likes of our councillors in Picton and Kensington, Anfield, Tuebrook, this has been a long time in coming. I've met a number of times with residents from Picton and stuff, and they're desperate for this to be stopped. So it's really important that everyone gets behind and we get a real robust consultation on this, so we've got the evidence that we need to actually get this passed.
Yeah, and I think it is a good news story for us, but possibly a bit long overdue. And I pay tribute to the ward councillors really in those wards, Greenbank, Picton, Kensington, who've been championing. That something needs to be happening here, as we've seen communities overrun with HMOs. Some of the HMOs within this city are quite good. Some of the HMOs within this city are quite welcome. But quite a substantial amount of them are just trying to make money and apply misery onto people that move into those. And we've seen that far too often, where in some cases, in some parts of this city, we're seeing streets with over 50% of houses within those streets that are HMOs. It's just not acceptable, and the sooner we get this approved and move it around to different wards in the city, the better. So any no comments on this? So certainly if Councillor Simon.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank Lily, Darren Hardy and all the team who've worked on this. As you said, we've been pushing for it for quite a long time. Really pleased that it's going to go out, the consultation is going to take place, and we can have this in as soon as possible. It is, you know, in the wards that you've mentioned, you know, top of the agenda for all of those residents, you know, with all the related problems that come through, you know, where you've got streets of, you know, houses of multiple occupation, and certainly that alongside, you know, sort of our application around selective licence as well is really going to help support the communities in and around our inclusive growth plan, because they're the key things that are causing a lot of us in those communities. As you say, there are some HMOs that are very well run, that they're needed, you know, particularly for key workers, new people in the city. You know, sometimes when people initially, you know, find themselves homeless for one reason or another, but when you have it concentrated within wards, you know, it is really difficult. And also when you get that then coupled, you know, with some irresponsible landlords as well, then it creates even more problems. So it's a really welcome report, and I just urge people in those wards to push that consultation out to the residents to make sure we get as much feedback. We're certainly doing that with our residents groups within the ward, and we'd urge councillors right across the city to support us with that.
Okay, Laura. You okay? Okay, all right. Okay, well, if we can then agree that recommendation and take note of Wendy's comments as well. So can we agree that recommendation as set out in the report, please? Okay, item C is the approval to continue with the telephony services, and that those services are provided by BT. We want to continue those services from 2020 to 2022. It states the reasons why in the report on pages 27 to 30. Is this recommendation approved to continue those contractual arrangements with BT for these services? Are the recommendations set out in the report agreed? Okay, nobody disagreeing with that, so we will accept the recommendations agreed, Mike. And we move on then to the next item, which is a partially exempt report, and I think we can consider this as partially exempt in terms of on the final appendices of the report that are exempt, some exempt issues. So unless anybody has any questions on them, we can consider the report, the main report, in public. So on that exempt part of it, in terms of the appendices, has anybody got any comments? It's about the housing capital programme investments. It's the new homes at Denford Road in Newtree. Okay, no, all right. Well, this is another good news story. It's showing how we are progressing to deliver and develop homes on this particular site. Obviously, COVID and a lot of things have slowed things down, but subject to some confirmation of grant funding from Homes England, the recommendation seeks our approval to enter into a contract with Lovell Homes. They'll see 105 houses built on land at Denford Road, with an agreement in place with Riverside Housing for the onward sale of 31 of these homes. So, Lily, do you want to make any comments on the report, please, and on the issue itself?
Okay, yeah, thanks, Joe. I know we've had COVID and lots of things, but this has been a long, drawn-out process to actually get this off the ground for various reasons. So, but obviously the likes of Barbara and the other U3 councillors, you know, this is welcoming. But I think if we just look at the mixed tenure of the properties, there's bungalows there, there's one bed, there's two beds, there's three beds. It's a really good mix that they're actually putting on there, which will be really good for that community, especially the bungalows. And I know Councillor Pam Thomas will be glad to see in the document, you know, the lifetime homes, the the spec and everything that Pam and the Corporate Access Forum and stuff have been fighting for, that's all been taken into account. So long overdue, but welcome.
Okay, and of course we'll have the local authority, Liverpool City Council, having a big involvement in the site and working with the ward councillors as well to make sure that people on the housing waiting list in those areas or whatever get some of the accommodation when it's built. Okay, so can we agree that recommendation as set out in the report, please?
Joe, before moving on, I believe Councillor Kushner would like to comment as well, if you're agreeable to that.
Has he had his hand up? There you go, Councillor Kushner. I thought he had his hand up from the last meeting.
No, thank you, Mayor. I was just, it's brilliant what Linny's managed to do here with, and would I be right in thinking these are the first sort of council houses that the council will have built in the last 30 years?
Well, they will be one of the first. We have got some council houses already in terms of some in South Liverpool, in the Dingle area, and also around where we've refurbished some of the sort of Picton houses around Tunstall and that particular area. So it's the first that we've we've developed it from the start, in addition to the ones that we did in I think South Hill Street in the Dingle. I think there was around about 13, but they were actually for foundations, the ones in the Dingle. So these are the first council houses that have been new built. So you're right to say that is, and it's the first ones in 30 years, absolutely. So it's something, again, that we should be proud of. And there will be an agency around building council houses now. And we need to do that not only to provide the accommodation, but of course to stimulate the economy and make sure that we are keeping the building and construction sector locally working as well. So that mixture is good news for us. So yeah, it is, and you're right to point out that fact. So can we then note both Linny and Barry's comments and agree the recommendation in that report, please? Okay, so we move on then to items 5 and 6, and there are no reports for us in relation to items 5 and 6 of the agenda. So we move on to item 7, which is the Chief Financial Officer report. So we have 2 financial reports to be considered. One is the Revenue Monitor, and it's month 4, the July period, and it sets out the revenue forecast as of month 4 of this financial year. Mel, do you want to make any comments on the Revenue Monitor?
Just to say, we've put the format back into direct, whereas previously we'd been reported in a COVID-19 format. We've now transferred that back to the directorates. The funding that we've received from government has been held centrally, so it is important that you read the narrative that goes with the numbers as well.
Yeah, okay, and the bottom line is that, you know, by Wednesday anyway, before council, we'll update full council on the current situation financially as well, so we get the very latest information to elected members immediately following cabinet. I have a discussion with the leaders of the groups of the council and so we'll be making a presentation, giving an update as of today and what yesterday's announcements mean to us, if anything, and what we can either look forward to or, you know, fear with trepidation what lies ahead of us. So we'll have those conversations on Wednesday as well to give you an update. Are there anybody, you know, has anybody got any questions in relation to the Revenue Monitor for Mel, for me? No. Okay, so as I said, we'll give a more fuller update on the finances and where we are, and especially in relation to what we've expended and what we've had received from central government. We'll try to give that latest update at full council on Wednesday. So item B then, under this section in the agenda is the capital programme monitor, and again it's month 4, it's July 2020. It just gives us an update in respect of our programme, our capital programme, as of month 4 of this financial year. Mel, do you want to give us any comments on or updates on the capital monitor?
Just to say that the main movement in that is removing the school's general allocation, which we're currently working with the school's capital team to assess what the individual projects are. So it's likely the amount that's been removed will actually come back in next month.
Okay. So any questions for Mel on the capital monitor programme? If not, just agree that report and that update. Okay, item number 8 of the minutes. So we've got no minutes to consider. So we've got one set of minutes to consider. Sorry, that's the Highways and Public Spaces Representation Committee, and that shows on pages 112 to 113 of your agenda. So the recommendations set out in the report. Can I ask the committee to conduct a vote now, Mike, just to see if everybody agrees those minutes of the Highways and Public Spaces?
Thank you, Joe. Unless there's any objections, is that agreed unanimously by members? Just nod, please. Thank you.
Please.
Okay, so basically we conclude today's meeting. Just to give a couple of comments from me, especially in relation to the COVID figures, and you know, as of yesterday, it's very, very clear that the situation in Liverpool is continually getting worse. It's not arresting or declining. It's actually getting worse, and we can see some of the figures that we're sending around to you every single day, the updates. As of yesterday, I think there was 5,000 children in the city, shielding, self-isolating, and 300 teachers. And, you know, it is going to likely get worse over the next couple of weeks. And I think, you know, we've got to accept that, you know, this, if kids are in school and people are mixing and out there and going about the business, even with some of the restrictions put in place, it's likely for us to continue to see this level of certainly infection rates in and around schools and in and around the community. But it's a real worrying time for us. Paul, do you want to give us your view and an update as to where we are?
Thanks, Joe. What you've just said there, we are experiencing a really rapid increase in the percentage and absolute number of positive test results that are coming back, and they're coming back from the wider community. They are coming from across the community, and it's spreading now throughout all age groups. We just to give an order of magnitude of these things, that the earlier on in the summer, that only 2% of the tests were coming back with a positive result. We're now getting over 10% of all the test results coming back positive. Leicester went into lockdown when it was about 135 cases per 100,000, but the situation here in Liverpool is that we're just short of 200 per 100,000 at the moment. The whole of the northwest, the whole of England is deteriorating badly, but Liverpool is deteriorating particularly badly. We really need the communities to work with us on this particular one. Please download the NHS app. I downloaded it yesterday. It's really easy to use, and it keeps your data confidential, and it enables you to be notified if you've been exposed to a risk, and to notify other people if you have tested positive yourself. Please also abide by the national rules, but also the local additional guidance that we put out from our public health team, which includes asking parents at the school gate to wear a face mask and be particularly careful if you are in an enclosed area, or and make sure you abide by the new Liverpool and North West rules that came out recently. There are full details on the council's website, Liverpool Express, which is very easy to understand. But we can only deal with the problem that we have at the moment if we work together. We are already seeing pressure on the NHS generally as a result of the rise in infections, and that is filtering through to the both primary and the acute hospital stage, and it will continue to get worse unless the community really pulls together on this.
Okay, and I think we're seeing clearly a failure in the test and track and trace system in terms of capacity and availability. As I said, my own family experience. My son was sent home from work because his son, my grandson, was sent home from school. A test. I don't know whether he's got one today or he couldn't yesterday, and his work won't let him back in until he's had the test, so he's not earning. So this is replicated across the city, and I also think the confusion and the mixed messages from this government are absolutely appalling, really. I mean, without any thought or into rules, they're just throwing out a blanket and trying to get enforcement on things. And you've got a situation where restaurants can operate during the day, but at 10 o'clock they have to close. And so anybody wants to have a late meal, has got to be in the restaurant by around about 8:30 in order to actually then be thrown out at 10 o'clock. And what makes a restaurant unsafe after 10 o'clock, but makes it safe after 2 o'clock is beyond me. The fact of the matter is restaurants in the city and the majority of bars have been operating in a COVID safe way. Clearly, it is about individual responsibility as well as making sure that businesses operate in that COVID safe way. And restaurants in particular have been doing so, and I think they're being punished. It's going to mean, huge amounts of closures in Liverpool of restaurants and potentially, thousands of jobs being lost. So I just hope the government look at individual sectors and try to come up with rules that operate for different sectors rather than just have this complete blanket. But I think the message the simple message from the City Council to people is to continue, as Councillor Brandt said, is to follow the rules in terms of social distance and wear those masks whenever. Somebody said to me about wearing masks in the streets. Well, if I'm going out for my walk of a morning and I'm walking towards a bus stop and I see 6 or 7 people at the bus stop, or 2, and you've got to pass them very closely, then put your mask on. That's what I do. So people should use their own judgments and their own common sense in how they approach it, but we should be wearing masks wherever possible, unless of course you are exempt and you have underlying health conditions. And we've got to work with the police, we've got to work with the retailers to make sure that people do that, but keep your social distance and do the basic stuff like wash your hands and see if we can try and arrest this disease from spreading, because those figures Councillor Brandt's just mentioned about the infection rate in the city, if you remember, so the last week when we started going into our own, obviously it's only happened on Tuesday, but last week when we were given the decision that we were going to have to introduce our own measures, the rate was 100. And now it's 200. So you can see that that's been 100% increase in a week, and that is really, really worrying because again, as Paul Brandt has said, the pressure on the hospitals and our services are going to be felt, and it's going to spread in the communities, in our schools. So it's a real concern for us all. And the plea and the message must be just for everybody simply to be vigilant make sure that they're vigilant, make sure that they apply common sense. I think me and the Chief Executive had a conversation with businesses yesterday as well. So, I think also Tony's been in touch with central government as well. So, do you want to add anything, Chief Executive, to the comments that I've made?
Yeah, just to support what you're saying, Mayor, really important that everybody follows the rules and that we get control of the virus again, but that we do it in a way that doesn't affect the local economy in an adverse way. And some of the point we're making to government, and this is the experience of other places that have had guidance which has caused a lot of confusion to people on top of the rules, is that it potentially drives activity underground, and it doesn't help the growth in the virus, but it really damages the local economy. So I think you're writing to the government today with some other city leaders to make that point really strongly, that we need to look at overall well-being, do all the things we can do that will work in terms of stemming the increase in the virus, but also protect the local economy. And that balance is really important for the well-being of the whole city.
Okay, and that's as I said, something that just to reassure any members of the public, but also cabinet members, that we are in regular contact, the Chief Executive and officers and those across the region as well are making sure that we have dialogue, at least, so we can talk about the potential damage to the city and what government can do to help us help ourselves. So I don't know whether any body else has got Wendy.
Yeah, I think as well as obviously protecting everybody from the virus as well, I think certainly, sort of the impact on local businesses, and particularly, within my portfolio, the cultural sector, and particularly the events industry as well, most of whom are self-employed, most of whom have not been able to work all year, and those related organisations. I think the latest government announcement yesterday in respect of how, with the end of furlough, what's coming in, that's going to be really difficult for small businesses to manage in some ways. And I know you've been pushing, with central government about support for, these people who are not covered by any of the previous schemes and probably won't be covered by the current one that's come forward. And certainly just to let people out there know, we are pushing, with central government around people being, sort of supported. I know we've done some small programs, our Without Walls and stuff, was try to support some of them, but they're small pieces of work. These are people who've not been able to work and can't see any work well into 2021. And if the virus continues, sort of, and that doesn't just impact on that industry, it impacts on all those small businesses who supply those industries, either with their products or related services. So it's a massive impact on our city, and I know we're pushing forward, and I just want people to know that, we're continuing to do that, but central government really does need to do something about those people who fall between some of the schemes, and people now who are not going to be any scheme once that furlough ends, and particularly with the thirds that the government are talking about how pay will be paid. If you're a small business struggling to survive and you're having to work all that out for the small, sort of workforce, the additional pressures that's going to put on business as well, it is going to be catastrophic.
Okay, Councillor Brand, and then Councillor Miller, and then I want to move on.
Sorry, Joe. I don't know if I have my hand up or not, but no, I completely endorse what Wendy Simons has just said, because there needs to be particularly sector support for the hospitality sector, for the arts and theatres and cultural sector and also the hospitality sector, because they are going to be struggling over the winter, and it's disappointing that if the national furlough scheme is no longer going to be continued, that there isn't sector-specific furlough support available. But also we need to make sure that there is financial support available for people who are being asked to self-isolate. Some of the figures showing that only 20% of people who are suffering symptoms and need to self-isolate are doing so. That is no doubt being driven by the fact that a lot of people are in low-paid work and they can't afford to take the time off work. So we need to make sure that you are not being penalised financially for doing the right thing. People shouldn't be forced to choose between feeding their family and doing the right thing for wider society. We need government to make sure that they put in place financial support for people to do the right thing.
Okay, so Gary, I'm going to bring you in, and then I'll ask the Chief Executive just to respond to some of those points that's been made there about conversations that we're having on those issues. Okay, Gary.
Thank you, Mayor. I won't add on to what Paul have already mentioned and yourself and Tony, but it's important for businesses not to feel as though there is nobody there to help. And there are some wonderful resources in the city that there will be people to listen. And if they were to log on to the internet and go to the local growth hub and get some ideas about additional support through the council, go to the Chamber of Commerce, go to the Federation of Small Business, or go to the Liverpool Business Improvement District Company, find those on the web, and you will get resources that show that you're not on your own. It's not always about access to finance and money. It's sometimes where do I turn to get the most recent information, and all of the above that I've just mentioned will be able to help. The first thing I would suggest is, if that's all confusing and too much information, simply go on to the liverpool.gov.uk website and click on the coronavirus support link at the top of the screen, and that will give you further help for businesses to look at. Thank you.
Okay, can I ask the Chief Executive just to comment on any of those comments that have been made?
Yeah, Mayor, just to completely support what councillors are saying. Really, really important. As we have done throughout the crisis, the council continues to engage with business and pick up the issues that they're facing and make representations to government through all the avenues that we have. I think we demonstrated when the business grant scheme came in, not just in the speed with which we got the grant payments out to support business, but the case we made with other local authorities in the North West for government to give us the flexibility through the discretionary business grant system to support those businesses that were falling outside of the parameters of the initial scheme that the government came up with. And that saved many, many businesses and jobs in the city. And what we need to do now, and we are doing, is putting together evidence for those businesses and sectors that are missing out on the support that the government have come up with, and critically demonstrating what the economic impact will be. And the point here is that these are really, really good businesses. I think Wendy made the point about the supply chains from those businesses. They employ many thousands of people, and they're in this difficulty through no fault of their own. When this crisis is over, and it will be over, if we support them through this process, they will be good businesses and will be a key part of our economy in the future. And that's the point we're making. You're making it regularly, and the council behind you to government to make sure they do get the information, understand the importance of getting this support right.
Okay. So I'm just going to then leave the COVID situation there, but of course I just want to mention a couple of things. One is the current dialogue that we're having around trying to see if we can work with others to keep Malvina and Brushwood homes open. As people know, we entered into an arrangement with Your Healthcare where we built some accommodation for them to rent and for them to manage and run and they run these two facilities for less than 12 months, or thereabouts 12 months, and unfortunately told us that they were ending their arrangement. So Paul, officers, myself have been having discussions with Shore Healthcare, but with other providers as well, to see if there's any way that we can manage with them a situation where we can work with them to see if the homes can be kept open for the residents that are currently there and the staff, and we continue to try to do that as much as we can. As I keep pointing out to people, we don't run these facilities, we don't manage adult social care. I wish we did. I wish we had the money to be able to, but the reality is we don't. But we are working really hard behind the scenes to see if we can rescue this for those people and their families that are accommodated there, but also for the staff as well. So we'll continue to do that, and we're working extremely hard behind the scenes. Hopefully we'll be able to find a solution. But let's be absolutely clear that we're heading into a really difficult situation financially for all the care home providers within the city, and Councillor Blunt and the team in adult social care are working with people on a daily basis to try to see what we can do to assist them. We do know that there are a number of them who've notified us that they're struggling and likely to close, and we've seen in places like Bradford where I think there's 26 care homes going to close. So it's a difficult, challenging time for us, but we will try to do as much as we can. But once again, let me make it absolutely clear that financially we are really struggling. And as we head into 21 to 22 financial year, we are facing a real cliff edge, and how we manage and how we continue to operate is going to be the most serious challenge I think the city has ever faced. So anything that we do to support not just care homes but anybody else financially has to come out the budget, and something else has to give. So we are, as I said, continuing to try to push the boundaries to look at everything that we can do to assist other people taking over. So we'll keep you updated on that, and progress is being made. Just yesterday, Liverpool have signed up to the United Nations in terms of the Sustainable Development Goals, 17 Sustainable Development Goals, but we're working with an organisation here in Liverpool, which is the United Nations Local 2030 Hub, it's called. And that is to make sure that Liverpool, they're based here in Liverpool, and help us promote and raise the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations and what we've signed up to. So I spoke at the United Nations yesterday with a lot of virtual meeting that we had with about 200 other senators, governors, there was mayors, all making a contribution, and Liverpool as one of the newest cities to sign up. We were given a slot, and I spoke at that, where we talked about how our inclusive growth and our city plan, which is an iteration of the inclusive growth strategy, was looking at tackling poverty, health and well-being, trying to create economic growth that impacts and reduces inequalities within the city, and how we're addressing and trying to work with central governments and with others to lessen the impact of climate change. So it was a good meeting. I think I promoted our city plan and inclusive growth strategy as a radical new plan. It's now about making sure that we deliver on that, and we empower communities, and we make sure that everybody within the city benefits from that. So that was the clear message that was given to the United Nations in New York at that virtual meeting, which I was honoured and privileged to attend. So as I said, next Wednesday is full council meeting, a virtual council meeting, and we will discuss many items on there. One of the items that has been topical is the issue of the arms fair at the Arena and Convention Centre, and that is now not going to happen. It's not taking place, but I am looking at setting up a small group to look at how we develop an ethical charter for the city, and also we will then ask the Arena and Convention Centre to adopt that ethical charter to the board process of the Arena and Convention Centre, so we avoid some of the things that have happened recently which have been controversial. So we will develop that ethical charter and bring it to Cabinet for Cabinet's approval, and then to take it to full council at a later stage. So that was just an update on that. So for me, as I said, the weekend is going to be nice and bright, I believe. So please enjoy the good weather and make the most of it. But please get those messages about people following the guidelines, maintaining social distancing, doing all the things that we know people have to do in order to arrest this virus. It's the most serious challenge that we face ahead of us, and following on from that, of course, the financial challenges that we face. So please stay well, stay safe, and speak to you all on Monday. Okay, have a good weekend. Bye-bye.